We hear the term childhood diabetes a lot, don't we? But for thousands of families, this isn't just some abstract health topic, it's their daily reality. It's a lifelong condition that starts when you're a kid, and its impact is only growing. So today, we're going to go beyond the headlines and really dig into what this diagnosis means for the kids and families right at the heart of it.
So, just how big of a deal is this? Let's start with a number that might surprise you. In England and Wales alone, we're talking about nearly 30,000 kids and young people under 19 who have diabetes. And to put that into perspective, think about it. That's like having at least one or two students with diabetes in every single secondary school.
And here's the thing about that massive number. You might imagine it starts with some big, dramatic health scare, but that's not usually the case. For most of these kids, the journey begins really quietly, with symptoms that are super easy to overlook or just chalk up to something else entirely.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're going to explore today. We've got the statistic, but what's the actual human story behind it? What does it actually mean for a kid and their whole family to navigate life with diabetes every single day?
All right, so to really get into their journey, we've got to understand the condition itself. And the first thing you need to know is not all childhood diabetes is the same, not by a long shot.
You know, we hear so much about type 2 diabetes in the media, right? But when we're talking about kids, the picture is totally different. Check this out. A whopping 95% of cases, that's almost all of them, are type 1. That other little slice, just 5%, is where you'll find type 2 and other rare forms. And believe me, that distinction is absolutely key.
Okay, so what is the difference really? Well, think of it like this. Type 1 is an autoimmune thing. Basically, the body's own defense system gets confused and attacks the very cells that are supposed to make insulin. It's like friendly fire. Type 2, on the other hand, is all about insulin resistance. The body's still making insulin, but it just can't use it effectively. So, yeah, two completely different ballgames. So, let's talk about that moment of discovery. How does a parent go from, something seems a little off, to getting a diagnosis that changes everything? Well, it often starts with a few classic signs that, honestly, are really easy to miss.
Doctors often talk about the classical triad of symptoms. Sounds fancy, but it's actually pretty straightforward. First up is polydipsia. That's just the medical term for being incredibly thirsty, all the time. And of course, if you're drinking that much, that leads to the second one, polyuria, which means going to the bathroom a lot. And the third sign, which can be really confusing for parents, is weight loss, even though the child might be eating and drinking tons.
Now, what happens if those signs are missed? This is where things can get really serious really fast. The child can go into a state called diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA. See, without insulin, the body is starving for energy, even with all that sugar in the blood. So it does the only thing it can. It starts burning fat for fuel. But this process creates these acidic byproducts called ketones, and when they build up, the blood literally becomes acidic. It's a true medical emergency.
And here's what's so scary about DKA. It's a master of disguise. A doctor might see rapid breathing and think pneumonia, or severe belly pain and think appendicitis. The drowsiness, the vomiting, that could be any number of childhood bugs, right? This overlap is exactly why it's so dangerous, and why getting the right diagnosis quickly can be a matter of life and death.
Okay, so once that diagnosis is confirmed, everything changes in an instant. The family is suddenly thrown into a new world where they have to become experts in managing this condition. And they need a whole new toolkit to do it, a toolkit of technology, and just as importantly, a toolkit of people.
Let me throw another number at you. 5. Just 5. That's the minimum number of times a day, according to the official guidance, that a child with type 1 diabetes has to test their blood glucose levels. And I want to stress that word, minimum.
So what does 5+ look like in real life? Well, it means a finger prick test before breakfast, another one before lunch, another before dinner, one more before they go to bed, and then there are all the extra ones. If they get sick, if they're going to play soccer, if they're just running around at the park, it never stops. It's a relentless 24/7 job with no holidays.
The good news is, no family is expected to do this alone. It truly takes a village of specialists. You've got your pediatrician, of course, but also a diabetes specialist nurse, who is often the main point of contact. You've got a dietitian, because counting carbs becomes a huge part of life. And so importantly, a clinical psychologist, because managing the mental and emotional weight of all this, that's a whole other challenge.
All right, let's talk about the insulin itself. How do you get it into the body?
Well, there are two main ways. The first is multiple daily injections. This usually involves one type of insulin that acts slowly in the background all day, and another fast-acting type you take right before you eat. The other option is an insulin pump. It's this little device that's attached to the body, and it gives a steady, slow drip of insulin all day and night. Then, when it's time to eat, you just tell the pump to deliver an extra dose.
Okay, so we've talked about the daily grind. But managing diabetes isn't just about planning for the long-term future. It's also about dealing with very real and sometimes very sudden dangers that can pop up at any moment.
The one that families are always on the lookout for is called a hypo, short for hypoglycemia. This is when blood sugar levels dip too low. It can be triggered by anything, really. A little too much insulin, a delayed snack, or even just an extra energetic game of tag. And the feeling? It can start with just being a bit dizzy or shaky, but if it's not treated quickly, it can lead to seizures. It's serious stuff.
And because hypos are such a big part of life with type 1, everyone around the child, parents, teachers, coaches, gets trained on exactly what to do. It's a clear 3-step plan. Step 1, get sugar in them, fast. Think juice, glucose tablets, something that will work quickly. Step 2, wait 15 minutes and then test their blood again to see if it's working. And Step 3, the emergency plan. If the child is unconscious, there's a special injection called glucagon that can bring them around. And let's just circle back to DKA for a second, that really dangerous state we talked about earlier. Here's something wild. Even treating it is incredibly risky. One of the most feared complications is something called cerebral edema, which is swelling of the brain. It's why kids with DKA are always treated in a high-dependency or intensive care unit. The doctors have to manage their fluids with unbelievable precision. It just shows you what a tightrope walk this all is.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time on the nuts and bolts, the blood tests, the insulin, the risks, but the story of childhood diabetes is so much more than that. The impact it has on a child's mind, on their social life, those challenges can be just as tough as any medical issue.
And what's interesting is that the challenges change as the child grows up. When they're really little, it's all on the parents, 24/7 vigilance, waking up in the night to do blood tests. Then they start school, and it's a whole new ballgame, navigating sleepovers, school trips, and just helping them feel normal with their friends. And then you hit the teenage years, and that is a perfect storm. You've got hormones messing with blood sugars, the desperate need to fit in, and all the usual teenage angst and body image stuff layered on top.
This quote right here, it just nails the teenage dilemma. Seriously, put yourself in their shoes. For a teenager, the risk of a health problem 20 years from now feels like a lifetime away. But the risk of being seen as weird or different by your friends right now, that feels huge. That feels immediate. And that's the battle they're fighting every day.
And that intense psychological pressure can sometimes lead to some really dangerous places. There's a condition called diabulimia, which is a terrifying mix of diabetes and an eating disorder. See, without enough insulin, the body can't process calories properly, so you lose weight. Some teens, desperate to be thin, figure this out and start deliberately skipping their insulin. It's an incredibly dangerous path that can have absolutely catastrophic results.
So when you put it all together, the numbers, the science, the daily grind, the emotional toll, it becomes pretty clear, right? This isn't something one family can or should handle in a vacuum. It really is a community issue. And that leaves us with a big question to think about. What's our role in this? How can we, as friends, as teachers, as a community, be better allies for these kids and their families on what is, for them, a truly lifelong journey?